One thing I wanted to show you was the reaction. Now, he's been asked, this student of forensic science has been asked to explain himself more so and answer the queries on the ink injections into the fingerprints, the hydration, etc. I don't think it's important really, because it's been identified. It could have been identified by his teeth. I think what he was trying to point out is the possible lies and corruption about saying they've identified via the fingerprints, which they might have well done, but he explains himself. He's not saying that he's a high level 15, 20 year. He's not saying that he writes referee journals or everything else, because we could find this exact information in a referee journal, but he's just trying to explain himself. I'm not doubting him myself. I'm sure he's not bothered whether you go higher up the chain to find out this information from somebody else. He's just trying to explain himself. Anyway, if you take a look at his video, he explains his situation and the way he feels, and also the suspicions surrounding this strange missing person.
Covered after a month of being stuck in that ravine. Now I'm going to give you the 3 main factors that contribute massively to accelerated decomposition. Number 1, age. The younger you are, the faster you decompose, and that's just scientific fact. Jay was a teenager, or is. Number 2, weight. The less mass you have, the faster you decompose. Jay looked pretty skinny to me. And number 3, what a lot of you have mentioned about the environment and where he was found, like at the bottom of a ravine, and it gets cold there at night time, sometimes like freezing, and it's covered by a canopy of leaves, so it protects you from the sun. It wouldn't make a difference, especially after a month, okay? Because in the daytime, the temperatures are such that the decomposition is accelerated so far that necrosis, or death of the epidermis or skin, happens that fast that the process has already started. And those few hours at night time where it goes freezing cold wouldn't have impacted us at all. It would have to be consistently freezing cold weather around the clock in order to preserve the body enough to be able to get a formal identification from fingerprints. Now, I have seen quite a few comments about the rehydration of the dermis or the skin tissue in order to re-establish the fingerprint to such a state where it can be formally identified again. Now, this process does actually exist, but the evidence out there only suggests it's useful under climate conditions of a lot less than Tenerife, in under 10 days, and performed by a forensic scientist who's not part of possible corruption. Now, Jay Slater's parents, because I don't believe 95% of mainstream news outlets or media posts, I've got no idea whether they're going to be pushing for an inquest when they get back to the UK, or even starting criminal investigation, or even if they believe there's foul play in the first place. The only thing I've seen about them is they're on about the funeral and like raising as much money as possible. Now, if they are just believing the Spanish authorities and what they put out, this creates a massive problem for all of us. Because to pursue any kind of criminal activity, you need evidence. Now, because the Spanish police have done a fantastic job of, in my opinion, perverting the course of justice by clearing everything up. The B&B was never forensically checked at the time. The 2 guys got let home straight away. I've talked about all this before. The hire car never got checked. So any circumstantial evidence is long since gone. So for that Lucy and those 2 guys and anybody else that might be involved in this to be arrested under suspicion of Jay's disappearance and try to ascertain any circumstantial retrospective evidence, Jay's parents would need to go and apply to the UK coroners for an inquest and a second post-mortem, and explain that they're not happy with the outcome of the autopsy conducted in Spain because they suspect foul play. And they would have to make a complaint to the British police. However, unfortunately, the Spanish authorities have done a pretty good job at boxing this case off. Jay's remains, if they were Jay's remains, were apparently found at the bottom of a very steep ravine, with apparently broken bones and a closed door open head injury. By closed door open, I mean through the skull or not, okay? When Jay's remains get transported under the care of the coroner to the forensic scientist who will conduct the autopsy, they will look at all the injuries, broken bones, head injury, etc., and they'll ask the authorities, okay, where was he found? And they'll tell them at the bottom of this ravine, okay, that's consistent with a fall. So that's what's happened, and that's what they'll rule. Consistency doesn't mean causality. That doesn't mean that's what's caused it. So if Jay's parents do go to the UK police, which I'm sure they've been heavily advised not to, and the police look at it and see the autopsy report from the Spanish police and say, yeah, these injuries, consistent with the fall, it won't be in the public interest to reopen the case. There's no other evidence suggesting otherwise. It's all been removed. You can even run a toxicology report on his remains. You can do that by taking a fragment of bone or a strand of hair, and that will show up what substance he had in his body. But it won't show the dosage, as in, did it contribute to him blacking out or getting disorientated? It also won't show the timeline of when it was induced. I'm sure any evidence that Lucy or those two guys had, i.e. phones or anything like that, have long since gone. People in those kind of positions, they know how to cover the tracks. And based on what I've read and what I've seen, it does appear to me that Jay Slater's parents are resigning themselves to what the Spanish authorities have put out there, that it was an accident, and that's how they've lost their son. And they're more concentrated on the funeral side of it now and raising money for that. I mean, I can understand that, I can understand it must be painful to suspect the actual truth that your son may have lost his life to the hands of somebody else. And I see a lot of you guys say, oh, why don't you just let him rest in peace and let his family grieve and just move on, he's gone, it was an accident, deal with it and all that kind of stuff, And I get that people do struggle with coping with sometimes what may be the truth, because sometimes the truth is a lot harder than what's easily accepted. So the truth in this case may well spell a big problem for all tourists going to Tenerife.
Watching Aldon's reviews and true crime, and remember to hit that like button and hit that bell, and you get all the videos and all the updates straight away. Thank you.